Delighted to be in person for many of you, and for those joining through the video stream, welcome as well. The State of the College traditionally has been a time to get people together and really to have a social gathering and allow mainly our first year class, we celebrate them as you'll see, and get them to meet upperclassmen, chance for the faculty to get together and have some socialization. And that's been interrupted, obviously. Last year was completely virtual, and this year we sort of have a hybrid, but we're not quite at the point, unfortunately, with the Delta virus that we can fully have the type of social event we want, but we hope to have that soon. It's really a great privilege to be here with you in my role as Executive Dean of Cclcm. I want to start out really with gratitude. The last year has been really an amazing challenge for everyone in this country and the world. We're all aware of that, and I don't think no one has been spared from being affected by the pandemic. And I have to say, I'm so proud to be a part of Cclcm and CWRU to see how really we have acted together, in my mind, as a team, and really had strength that is just remarkable in terms of coalescing efforts, coalescing smart minds, creative minds, with always the thought in mind of beyond the health of our communities, which is important in our own health, when we focus on the school, really saying how can we continue to really create the best medical school experience possible? How can we train physicians, students to become the best physicians possible in light of COVID? And I've been amazed at how I think we've done a remarkable job as a team. And I want to thank, we have some faculty, the deans are here, many of the deans, thank them, and the faculty who are here or watching live. Remarkable how you've all adjusted and adapted. A special thanks to this team. So this administrative team is it's a lean, mean team, and they all have important roles. And if you look at where this team was in terms of their roles and responsibilities, pre-COVID, fantastic, and with COVID, amazing what has happened. We transformed, as many places have, to a virtual curriculum almost overnight. And people have had to adapt to homework environments and adapt to a personal stress of having COVID affect family members and friends. And I just can't thank this group enough. They just are remarkable. Delighted that Dr. Gerson, our interim dean, Case is here, as well as Leah Logio, our vice dean for medical education. And Stan and Leah are incredible partners. One of the things we've learned, in coming together in the building is how to work better together, how to work more efficiently together. Believe it or not, of the dean's suite upstairs, I was the senior member in terms of longevity, having not been there that long, but each of them have been in their roles for now starting their second year. And my own feeling is it's been a wonderful collaboration, and really to have people new in the role, one of the advantages is you get a new perspective and ask good questions about our programs and look for new opportunities for us to partner. And that's happening, and it's very exciting. So thank you, Stan and Leah. The class of 2021 is now off in residencies, and we've heard from a few of them. And, we want to acknowledge that. It was a tough year for them, very tough in terms of the fact that residency process involved virtual interviews, a completely different paradigm. They were the first group to experience that, and a lot of stress. They couldn't do away rotations. They couldn't look at residency programs the way students traditionally do. We were able to hold an in-person graduation, and that was really exciting. So it was a little bit different. If you see on the upper left, The faculty marched in with masks on, and it was outdoors, thankfully a beautiful day. And if it had rained, I don't know what we would have done. And it really was a lovely event and so meaningful, I think, for those of us who could be there. And we got a few candid shots on the field afterwards. Our students continue to do remarkably well when they finish training here and move on to residency programs. Over half now go to the U.S. News and World Report top 10 hospitals, and a large percentage stay right here in Cleveland. And this is an expanding list, and actually we're struggling really to get all these photos on one slide. And this is a great slide for me to look at. It's sort of a visit down memory lane to try to guess the year when they started and graduated. But we have a huge number of students who stayed on here for residency, and it's really exciting. It's so exciting for all of us as faculty, I think, to engage with our former students as residents or as staff. So our staff is expanding as well, including Dr. Warren, who you'll hear from. And while I was looking, Christine, and we've got not quite every class represented. I don't see class of 2010. But, this is just going to expand more and more as we go along. Several from your first class, 3 out of 31. We're starting to track the accomplishments of our graduates. Assessment outcomes are really important to any medical school. We have to hold ourselves accountable. We have to say, is our vision of creating a medical school that will train physician investigators being achieved? Now, we have a little bit of trouble with the power of our study because we have small n. So we are approaching this right now by looking at 10-year follow-up. So you have to realize, obviously, when someone graduates from medical school and goes into training, depending on the residencies, it can be several years before they really land in any kind of career. So we're really just at the beginning, I think, of starting to see how our graduates will end up in terms of career focus. This is sort of a neat graphic, though, that I think is encouraging. So most of our students have landed in fellowships, they've landed in research, they've landed in meaningful education roles, and they are producing first author publications. And we will be getting more information out as we have more data, but our total right now is only about 60 students. So today is about updates. It's a lot of work to run a medical school and to meet the accreditation guidelines, and we do that superbly well. What I want to highlight today with the help of some of my colleagues here is some of the issues and the initiatives that we've taken on, I think, to enhance our school. So we'll cover a little bit about our communication strategies, faculty development, acknowledge our incoming class, and as all good first-year students do, many of them came here because we had food. We know that food is a big sell, and so students seem to find the food wherever it is. We're going to talk about some of our diversity, equity, and inclusion efforts, COVID, and finally climate change. So we've got a lot to cover, but I'm excited really to share this with you. Communication really is a huge priority for us at the school, and I can tell you it's always a moving target and a challenge. How do you effectively engage the entire community? How do you let the students know what's going on as quickly as possible? How do you let the faculty and admin team know things in a timely fashion? How do we ensure that students know that we are hearing their voices, trying to integrate their feedback and act accordingly? And the speed of information is quite rapid, so very hard to keep up, as even today we hear about booster shots for the main population, not just immunocompromised. And at a leadership meeting today, we're talking about we need to get a vaccination strategy ready for our student body as quickly as possible. So we have to pivot quickly, we have to get information out quickly, and it's always a question of how we can do that most effectively. So some of the things we have been doing, and we will try to enhance our communication strategies. We have an Insight newsletter, and we're shifting that to quarterly. That's more of a celebration of our events like graduation, like match day, white coat ceremony. where we're able to highlight some of the key events at the school. We started town halls, I think it was March of 2020, try to get some information out about COVID. And those have been surprisingly successful and well received. And we realize the students can't all attend those, but we have shifted now. We're going to continue those indefinitely every Monday morning from 7:30 to 8. Special thanks to Neil Mehta. It's amazing. We don't really plan these out in advance. We just get on Zoom and we sort of tag team off each other, and we have other people come in, and Dr. Warren is able to give updates about issues related to student life. But it's really a theme of trying to keep ahead of the game in terms of COVID information, how it's going to affect our community, how we can protect ourselves, and also learn. And as Neil will show you later on, we've done some remarkable work as a school around COVID. Class meetings, again, the shift in person to virtual, we're working through that. We are planning to implement some student town halls, and again, trying to do this in a way that respects student time, but gives you a forum where you can ask questions, have issues addressed in a timely fashion. We're also looking to implement a focused student newsletter, and that's really at its very early phases. We had one of those last year, and I think the goal with that, again, is to share information, especially about curricular issues and changes in a very timely way and be available to you. We also, Dr. Warren and I, have instituted structured meetings where we offer first, third, and fifth year students a chance to meet with us as individuals. Of course, anyone is welcome to meet with any of us at any time, and we're always available. But these are sort of touch points that we think are valuable. At the end of the first year, it's a big adjustment for medical school to hear how things are going. At the end of the third year, as career choices are starting to form. And of course, we've been meeting with our rising fifth years to talk about their MSPE letters to help them apply to residency. And it's a great joy to us to meet with the students, to learn about their accomplishments, and especially with our fifth years, really to hear how much they've accomplished as they move on to apply for residency. Faculty development is also something may not be that apparent to the students, but it's critical. And for virtually any meaningful role at CCLCM from the inception, because these were new roles, we created faculty development. So it's really designed to help faculty succeed in meeting the needs of our learners. So we've extended that this year with the help of Neil and Craig Nielsen, our Assistant Dean for Clinical Education. We thought there was really an opportunity to try to level set around our third year Cleveland Clinic longitudinal clerkship. And one of the challenges as we expand is we're always bringing in new faculty. So we can have a faculty who joins us in July of 2021, and suddenly we want to give them an opportunity to work with a student. So how can we help them be successful? And that's really the theme. So we're trying new models in the COVID era. We have designed faculty development that are really 50-minute sessions. We offer them twice a year, once at the noon hour, once early morning, and let people go on. These are all virtual. And just to give you an idea of the topics, many are familiar to faculty, things like an effective learning environment, observation and feedback, but I want to draw attention to a few of the new ones that we really are incorporating that we think have a great opportunity to expand traditional faculty development, and that is looking at issues of mistreatment, which often is unintentional. So how can we sensitize our faculty and help them recognize the danger flags, the warning flags for mistreatment? How do we advance health equity? And how do we help students who are facing microaggressions? So this is rolling out. We started this, I think, in March, and we're marching out through the year and getting feedback from the faculty who have attended, and we will adjust as necessary, but I'm very excited about this. I'm going to be your MC. I'm going to turn it over to Dr. Christine Warren, class of 2009, who will tell you a little bit about the class of 2026.
Good evening, everyone. In my role, I have the honor of introducing you to the class of 2026. For those of you watching online, here are their smiling faces. These were their ID photos taken on the first day, July 6th, that they joined us this year, and they're all smiling and laughing in the audience. And before I tell you some fun facts about our incoming class, I just wanted to share with you what they got to participate in during their orientation week. And I would like to thank Dr. Chevalier for his assistance in photography during orientation week. And they'll probably never let me take photos of them again if they know they're going to be in presentations of this sort. But on day one, they get their white coats. They get to try on their long white coats that they will wear while they're on clerkships here at the Cleveland Clinic in their longitudinal clinic. And you can see their smiling faces, and you can see in the background Karen Wright in our office, who makes sure they're fitting just right. And then we were able to begin again our Welcome to the Profession event. And that's something that unfortunately our previous class could not participate in, but we have this every year at the Foundation House. It's an opportunity for the students to come together, have an opportunity to talk with their classmates, talk with some faculty who are their professional family. And then we were able to have Dr. Lee Kirksey from vascular medicine or vascular surgery come and speak to our students about what it is to be a physician and what it is to be a physician investigator. The White Coat Breakfast also occurred this year, and that happens at the Continental Hotel, and you can see students having the opportunity to sit with their family, enjoy something to eat, talk with others, meet some of the family members of the individuals they'll be spending the next 5 years with. And we also provide to them at this time a gift of a stethoscope. And we've been able to do that over the years from the generosity of alumni from the Cleveland Clinic. And then the week culminates with the white coat ceremony, and this is held at Severance Hall. Because of rain, the photo could not happen outdoors, but we were able to pull off an indoor photo, and it was just a wonderful ceremony, and it was really nice to be back together. So now I'm going to tell you about how the class of 2026 arrived. As you can see in this graph, we received the most applications we have ever received for the incoming class. This is also a reminder every year of when I applied, I have a 5% chance of getting in, and now there's a 1% chance of getting in. So very, very humbling to see. But it was great in terms of the virtual interviews this year allowed us to meet pretty much everyone we invited to interview. Applicants did not have to turn down an interview invitation because of expense of traveling or because of time. And of those total applications, you can see that we were able to screen 1,861, and that's signifies the number of students that were able to complete the secondary essays that we sent out to them. And the majority of our applicants are from out of state. The class of 2026, 17 females, 15 males. We did have more females applying this year than males. And then we have 7 students who identify as underrepresented in medicine, and our students come from 22 different colleges. Here is a list of where they attended their undergraduate. And you can see that there's some overlap in a few schools. And this is definitely not intentional. We actually don't specifically look at that when we are coming up with our final list of students that we want to provide offers to. But as you can see, there's 78% of our students that took a gap year. And the mean was 2.1 years, ranging from 1 gap year to 6 gap year. So even though students might have attended the same undergraduate institution, Many of them did not overlap, but I did discover today that 2 of our students did know each other before they came to the school. As you would expect, the majority of our students do major in a science-related area, but our students have engaged in minors in German literature and culture, global health, art history, Spanish. So there's a broad range of interest. And then 3 of our students came in with a master's. At the time of application to our school, these are the locations, the states where or countries where they are where their permanent addresses were listed, and we have 6 students this year coming from California. So it's not true that Californians do not like to live in Ohio. In regards to community outreach and volunteering and being an educator, all of our students did serve as tutors or mentors, teachers, or coaches. Combined, they had 145 volunteer experiences, including in healthcare, and more than 83 leadership positions. They are well-traveled, so they have volunteered or worked or studied in the countries that you see listed here. In terms of research, any student that we interview has invested time in participating in various types of research projects. Our current class of 2026 came in with 64 scientific publications, 79 oral presentations, 80 awards, grants, and scholarships, and then you can see their other academic honors listed here. Research in every different area you can think of, and some had basic science research or translational research or clinical research, but they're eager and excited to participate here, both at the Cleveland Clinic, our affiliate hospitals, and at Case Western, and continuing their passion. But they like to have fun, so that's important. We are a small community, and we like to come together and share our other interests. So they can dance, they can play instruments, they can speak many different languages and play many different sports. Although we do have at least one of the members of 2026 who did play football in college, so I would like to challenge Dr. Isaacson and Dr. Mehta to a resurgence of the faculty-student football game. And then in regards to employment, so they didn't just engage in healthcare-related work. They were working in the food industry and Kings Island, I would like to meet the person who worked at Honeydew Donuts. And then in regards to being a teacher, many of them, as I mentioned before, were coaches, counselors, or tutors of some sort. They are adventurous, and my heart always skips a beat when we pull together and survey the students on this. Some of them report this in their application, and some students do not. I do not remember seeing they received an audit from the IRS from stock trading in the medical school application, but you can see that they have traveled to some exotic places. We have a student who was in a professional musical as a child. So maybe we'll have a little contest and see who can identify each student and their interesting experience. I would like to thank the admissions screeners, interviewers. You can see the faces of the faculty committee members who helped to recruit this class. Many of them were involved, or all of them were involved in interviewing the students, but there are many more people who interviewed both faculty and students who participated in sharing and demonstrating just how special our learning community is. And I now want to transition just to acknowledge a very important person to our Lerner College community over the last 13 years who unfortunately passed away unexpectedly in April. of this year. Unfortunately, the new students didn't have an opportunity to get to know Darlene Gray, but she truly made the students feel like the college was their home away from home. And I cannot tell you how many students have told us that, Darlene was the person that would lift them up when they were having a bad day. And for that reason, in the spirit of Darlene and the support she gave to the students, we have started our Darlene Gray Student Life Emergency Fund. And this can be found on the Cleveland Clinic gift donation website. And this is intended for students who do have unexpected hardships in their life that we will be able to help contribute to supporting them financially through that period of time. And then other members of the team that I would just like to thank for welcoming our students and also navigating the very challenging last 1.5 years are shown here, and many in the audience, but specifically in Admissions and Student Affairs, Liz Myers, Karen Wright, and Ali Tura, who are watching right now. And this is my last slide. If you would like to continue to be updated on what's going on in our students' lives, please follow us on Twitter. I can't take responsibility for the Twitter feed and being active in this area, but it's just, it's been a great opportunity for us to keep people up to date on what's going on. Okay. Thank you very much.
So before I turn it over to Dr. Yepes Rios, I have to deal with the football analogy. So the first year we had a student faculty, I think it was a flag football, touch football, something like that, over on Freiberger Field, which was not repurposed at that point, and the faculty won, okay? I think that she doesn't remember. But with age comes wisdom, so we quickly retired, the faculty retired from that. We did it a couple more years, and I think we ended up about even. But Craig Jarrett, I think, was in the class after you, so we avoided a Division I football player, and then when we saw Craig, I think we bailed out. Anyway, excited to introduce Monica Yepes Rios, who's newly minted as Assistant Dean for Diversity, Equity, and Inclusion for Students, and she will give you some updates. So welcome, Monica.
Thank you, Bud, and thank you for the opportunity to share our State of the College on diversity, equity, and inclusion. I don't have any football analogies. I still don't quite get it. Before starting, I just want to have like 3 slides to kind of remind us of the why for diversity, equity, and inclusion. So one of them, if we see the representation of minority physicians across the nation, Black, Hispanic, Native Americans, grossly underrepresent their proportion in the U.S. population. So this is a call for all of us to see how we increase our outreach. How do we really continue to build the next generation of physicians and physician scientists to serve a diverse community? Also, we heard from students, one of their major asks was for us to address recognizing and managing microaggressions and continue to build a better, more inclusive and anti-racist environment. The slides here are actually from an iBook that show some examples of microaggressions, and again, a call for not only for students to recognize it, but certainly for all of us, for faculty, to know what to do in those situations, and again, continue to build a more inclusive environment. And lastly, not only continue to build an equality in our education and in our treatment of our patients and community, but really build towards equity and ideally get rid of barriers for the care, both, again, as we train our next generation of physicians in taking care of patients and our community, and in our own approach to medical education. So last year, about this time, we built a Diversity, Inclusion, and Anti-Racism Steering Committee and several action groups. The members are students, very importantly students, the deans, administration, faculty, and really across the Cleveland Clinic, a lot of other support as well. This time last year, we sent a call to action and had over 100 people respond. So just a tip for all of you to think about it this year as well. And I'll spend a little time going through just highlights of what the groups have done in the past year. Importantly, the Cclcm has worked closely with GME and Health Sciences Education under the Education Institute to make sure we're not working in a bubble, and we really work together with our colleagues and advance a lot of this work. And likewise, at the university, a lot of efforts on building diversity, equity, and inclusion excellence with new positions of a Vice Dean, Monton Tolbert, and the Director, Tina Leining. And we're already starting to collaborate and advance a lot of the work in this space. So very excited about that. Again, back to our structure. Again, we have a steering committee that met, I think, weekly initially, and now we meet monthly, and a multitude of action groups that are, we on purpose call them action groups because we really wanted the groups to get very specific and start acting and start really creating change. Our message is clear within our community and also important externally to those checking students looking to come to our school or seeing our website, that not only our voices are here to condemn structural racism, but also embrace our communities to enact positive change. And this is a message we want to state clearly to all our community. Sorry, this is an older version of my slides. But in the space of admissions, Dr. Warren and Dr. Sutton, who's done a lot of work with the ERM applicants and interviews, we have continued deliberate approach to invite underrepresented minority students to come to our school. In this year, in addition to our continued efforts, also we'll be offering the opportunity to DACA, the Deferred Action applicants for our school, and also expanding the approach for both the screeners, the interviewers, and the whole admissions process with deliberate unconscious bias training for all of them, and continue to expand the opportunities for the holistic review in the application. This year, Dr. Warren's looking to blind the appropriate level MCAT scores and even pictures of students to just really make it a more inclusive approach. And importantly, once our students come for interview day or second look or virtually come for either one of these, to have an opportunity to meet other students like them and also to see the efforts we're doing in diversity, equity, and inclusion. Once students are here, our main concern is what we teach and the learning environment. Two groups. One is looking at the culture of anti-racism and have developed a teaching module on the history of racism in medicine and medical education. We actually used one of these modules for orientation with the first-year students and collaborated with Tina Leining from the university, who did a terrific training on unconscious bias. So again, an opportunity where we're working together in this space. And responding to what I mentioned earlier on microaggressions and allyship, there's an enterprise-wide group looking to design a teaching module on addressing this. This is almost getting ready to launch. For our students, we specifically created a new milestone where we're asking students to reflect, what if we were the ones to commit a microaggression, and how can we continue to reflect and improve from that? And for the students, again, in their ask to have some clarity on microaggressions, not only the training, but also more clearly on their portal, and to be able to report when they have seen or faced a microaggression, and then some clarity as to what happens when that gets reported and more transparency in that process. Again, supporting our students, developed an important mentoring program. So this was actually from the university and Lerner students, Student National Medical Association and Latino Medical Student Association created a mentor-mentee match that was very successful this past year. This coming year, we are actually going to be aligning as well with the House Staff Association at the Cleveland Clinic. So really excited to have that continuum from students, residents, and faculty. Important for our students to be able to see people who are like them, to really envision their career progression. So excited to see this continue to expand. We have created a new scholarship for underrepresented minority students who wish to come visit and do a clinical rotation at the clinic. It's actually for 9 medical students and 1 pharmacy student, supported by the Education Institute and our Associate Chief of Staff. We so far have 2 students and really excited to again offer that opportunity and have more representation in our school. In our curriculum, pretty much every aspect of our curriculum has taken a closer look at how we are teaching health disparities, how we can better train our next generation of physicians and physician scientists. You'll hear more about the LGBTQ curriculum. But importantly, we're looking at health disparities from the lens of social determinants of health and the longstanding structural racism, opportunities for more diverse faculty to teach across the curriculum, and opportunities to advance our teaching on health equity and decrease any bias that we may ourselves be introducing as we teach students. The group on research in particular, again, doing some of the same work of increasing the diversity of speakers and offering opportunities for research, also linked with folks across the city who are doing work in health disparities, and this is actually listed in the portal. Our students are always looking to connect with the community, to serve the community, and important in our curriculum to offer service learning opportunities. And we have enhanced clinical sites, electives. Many of them, the students themselves have been so incredibly proactive at creating opportunities for students. And this is also listed on a kind of live database that you can find on the portal. Great work has been done with COVID-19 outreach to patients who, for example, had difficulty accessing telehealth, for the vaccine hesitancy, connecting patients who showed up at vaccine clinics and didn't have primary care connection, and the students have been right there involved in helping all our community. In faculty development, important to continue to support our faculty. Sorry, this is a little... to continue to support our faculty in their own career progression here as well, in their mentoring of students, in highlighting faculty who work with our students and really bringing more diversity to our teachers as well. And then lastly, a lot of this work, importantly, we're sharing it with the broader education community. And there's a lot of scholarly work coming out of all of our action groups. I'm really happy and proud of many of our students who submitted several letters to academic medicine. Actually, Dr. Warren and I were chatting that they almost had their own section of academic medicine, and 3 of the groups received honorable mentions. So I'm really excited about a lot of the work there. And these are some of the examples. So here's a list of all the many people who I really want to take a moment to thank. That did just tremendous work. I was only able to highlight a few things that we've done in diversity and inclusion, but there's so much more. And again, just really, really thankful for the energy, creativity, and action that all of these students, faculty, and everyone, administrators did in this space. We all need to continue to grow. I borrowed this from the book on becoming an anti-racist from Ibram Kendi. To get us all to the growth zone, where we all speak when we see racism or any other kind of ism, where we continue to educate ourselves and our peers and continue to build a more equitable and inclusive environment for us and for our patients and the communities that we serve. And this is our call to action for this year for any students, anyone who's watching, faculty, to please join us. We love your energy and new ideas to continue this work. Thank you. Oh, there's one more? Oh, okay. So yes, thank you. So if you have your phones available, this is a QR code that will get you a list of the existing action groups and an opportunity to join, and more messages will be coming out where actually we'll ask you to join the groups. And if you have any questions, please, obviously, feel free to reach out to me. Thank you.
Thanks, Monica. Jason, Gus, come on up. So we thought we'd give you an opportunity to get a little deeper dive into one of the action groups, and delighted to have Dr. Jason Lambrisi and Gus Roversi here to talk about that, and excited about your new role as a society dean. So, all All right, take it away.
Hey everyone, so thanks so much for allowing us to share some of the work that we've been doing over the last year. In one of the action groups they just heard about, we're representing the LGBTQ Curriculum Action Group. So, let's see. Here we go. So why are we talking about this? Well, we know from the literature that across medical schools, about 5 hours are spent talking about LGBTQ health. And the work that we've done as a group recognizes before we started this project, we're probably right around that number, and we want to be better than the median. So we have put together a group of students and faculty to try to improve and increase the amount of LGBTQ health teaching happening across the 5 years, but focusing mostly on the preclinical years initially, because the more students are exposed to LGBTQ patients in medical school, the more knowledge and empathy they have towards this population. Fortunately, we're not doing this alone. The AAMC has put together a nice resource guide on how to better implement some of these curricular changes that really forms the backbone of our project. So how did our group come together? So it really started a year ago when I was talking with a couple of the students to better understand the state of LGBTQ health teaching at the college and realizing that there probably were opportunities where we could increase our teaching. So it started as a small conversation in my office, and I was able to connect with Dr. Yepes Rios, who suggests that we become an official action group under the task force. And I think that was a really key step in the success of our group, that really right from the beginning, we had administrative and institutional support for this work, which really sent a message of support to us and letting us know how important the school really sees the work that we're doing. So we were able to form a group with a mix of students, faculty, and administrators. And I think that this collaboration that we've put together over this last year has made this so successful. So there really is equal work from the students and the faculty in putting these changes into place. And so we've been meeting regularly over the last year to really better understand the state of the curriculum currently and suggest ways that we can better increase these topics in the curriculum. And so I'm going to have Gus tell you a little bit about the work that the students have done in the group to undergo this process.
All right, thank you, Dr. Lambrisi, and thank you all for having me here today to speak a little bit more about our project. So this is a little bit of the information on how we assessed the needs of our curriculum. So that was our first step. What is the state of our college and what is the state of our curriculum and where can we find some points of integration? So as you can see up top, our needs assessment was the first task that we all undertook. So as you saw, we had students from both the first and the second year class at the time, and we were able to prospectively go throughout the entire year looking for areas of integration, looking for seminars, specific lectures that we found, what if we added one more slide there? What if we added one bullet point there, where we could talk a little bit more about LGBTQ plus health information? And then what we did, we met with the course directors. As Dr. Lambrisi said, this has been really a team effort. And we've met with almost all actually, as a few hours ago, all course directors to make sure that we were on the same page, that we were doing it in a way that meshed well with the goals of the course. And now next year, we'll be working on the implementation. So here's an example, and I won't go into the nitty-gritty details of what we did, of what the information is on this slide, but this is an example of one of our courses, our endocrine and reproductive sciences for the second year. And you'll see that we're very specific about what we want to include in each of our seminars. And what I want you to gather from this slide is how specific and how we're really asking for one bullet point, one slide. And this has been really probably our biggest, the reason for our success is because we're not changing the entire curriculum. We're not reinventing the wheel here. We're adding a slide. We're adding a bullet point to already existing seminars. This is the reason for our success and why I'm so excited to show our progress from the last year. So as of today, by integrating this information, we've met nearly all of the competencies that the AAMC has outlined for us that we talked about a couple of slides ago. We've noted over 30 points of integration in each of our first and second year curriculum. And we have, as of today, as I mentioned earlier, met and communicated with all of our course directors at this point, which has really been such an amazing year and a very productive year. So we're very excited to show you this progress. And I'll turn it over to Dr. Lambrisi to tell you a little bit more about what's going forward.
So a lot of what will happen over the next year is the implementation phase, taking the suggested areas of integration that we have and seeing where we can really fit that into the pre-existing courses in the curriculum. But I did want to highlight sort of one tangible product that came of this year, which is that during the course of our group's meetings, we had reflected on that one of the pieces of feedback was the often inadvertent use of sex and gender sort of interchangeably as terms. And I feel like maybe that was a key teaching point for faculty development to help ensure all of our seminar leaders and PBL facilitators are using terminology appropriately. And so based on the student feedback, our group got together and put together this sort of educational document as a primer to be sharing with all of the faculty. As a group, we then brought it to the Basic Science Education Committee to receive feedback from administration and course directors. And at that point, after having the input from that group and really the support of that group, we're able to now disseminate this to all of the faculty members so that we can all ensure that we're using terminology appropriately. So it's one specific example of a really tangible piece of a result that came of the work of this group this year. I think a year from now, we'll have even more examples of that as we start implementing some of these changes. So things that are coming up next is that in addition to the curricular implementation arm, we have a research arm. So our goal is to really make sure the changes we're implementing are really working. And so we're going to be surveying medical students annually. We're assessing their knowledge, attitudes, and beliefs towards LGBTQ patients and LGBTQ health to make sure that we see over time that these changes are actually working. And so that's our call to action is the students will be receiving an email from us in a couple of weeks with our survey for this year. So we're asking everyone if they can to complete the survey so we can better understand the baseline level of knowledge of our students and hopefully next year be able to see that moving in the right direction. Our group serves as a resource for all of you. If anything we can do to help in the realm of LGBTQ health, we're happy to do so. Thanks so much.
Well, perfect segue to Dr. Mehta. And I just want to say, you know, it's remarkable to me to really see how our course directors and our curricular leads have embraced change and the opportunity for change. And you hear from, medical school curricular deans how hard it is to change the curriculum and how hard it is to get new information. And I think we've worked very hard in a collaborative way and are making small changes, meaningful changes without disrupting an existing curriculum that's working very well. So I'm delighted to have Neil Mehta, our Associate Dean for Curriculum, talk a little bit about COVID.
Yeah, and thanks, Jason and Gus. I mean, it's been a privilege to be part of your group. I just sit back and watch what you guys do and just gladdens my heart. So great job. So, if you think about personality versus character, personality is what you do and bring to work every day. And character is what you do when you are under stress. And COVID, of all things, allowed us to highlight the amazing character traits of our students. And I just want to give you a brief glimpse of some of the amazing stuff they did. If you think about curriculum, and I'll see a lot of deans and others nodding their heads, you want to start from the outcome. You're like, at the end of 5 years, what have we produced, right? And we have competencies and milestones and all that stuff. And then you can say, sometimes you just see something and you say, you know what? It worked. And I think COVID, again, allowed our students to tell us that maybe they are just good at good, and maybe that's true. Probably it's true. But in some small way, their experience here helped them become just truly amazing. So COVID, as you all remember, was tremendously stressful. And I know it's been over a year since that first wave, but some of these images help capture kind of the incredible stress we all went through. And this picture is just, I get dreams about this picture. She's about to intubate that patient, and that whole team is right there. And what COVID did was put us and every medical school in this tug-of-war situation where we were being pulled from several directions. So on one side, we wanted to be sure, and the students wanted to get this incredible opportunity for a unique curricular experience. I mean, who would not? This may or may not happen again in your lifetime. It was a great opportunity. On the other hand, everyone was worried about student safety. The students wanted to help, and everyone wanted to see if the students could help during the surge. On the other hand, we did not have PPE. And essentially what happened was, while we were debating what exactly the students could do, the decision was taken out of our hands, and essentially we were told, take the students out of all clinical settings. And March of last year, that's what we ended up doing. So, some students would say, okay, this is time to fly back home. Everything is virtual. I'll sit back, wake up at late, and just watch the video at 5 times the speed, and I'll be done, right? Our students did not do that, or I'm sure they did that, but they did more than that. And I'll give you 4 different examples of what they ended up doing. So one is around education, the other was around service, clinical, third was around research, and fourth was technology and a clinic. If you want to, this is a fabulous timeline put together by Deb Shirley and Laura Greenwald. And on the left side, you can see the events that happened in the world. And on the right side is all the ways that we responded. And believe me, January 21st was when Wuhan shut down. January 24th, we already had plans for how to go virtual. We were talking with our students, and they came back with a prototype of how we would go virtual. By early February, we had the prototype. We implemented it in March. So there is a lot of content here. I'm sure you read it as it was scrolling past, but if you did not, the URL is right there at the bottom, lernercollege.org/timeline. And each of those has a hyperlink to some more description of how each and everything has all the things that have happened. And if you have some stories to contribute to this as you go through the curriculum, let us know, because the pandemic is in no way over. So starting with the first topic, which is the surge curriculum. So some of you know that this building, the atrium, was converted into a hospital. Luckily, we didn't have to use it, but in preparation, they knew that we were going to need a lot more clinicians on the floor. So there is a lot of physicians working here, 3,000 or more. A lot of them have not worked in inpatient medicine for a very long time, since their internship or med school. How do we get them trained so that they know how to manage hypoxemia or AKI? So our students actually created, these are the students who had finished clerkship year, and they created an online curriculum with, actually it was 67 modules that trained people. They trained physicians, they trained attendings, they trained orthopedic fellows on how to take care of medicine patients on the floor. And this was all done with narrated videos on PowerPoint, with additional questions and annotations. And the best part of it was they worked very closely with the pulmonary fellows who helped them, guide them, and oversaw what they had done. This content is now available to the entire world, and actually got a huge grant of around $230,000 supporting it. And a lot of our students contributed to this curriculum. What did they learn? One of the things that gladdened our hearts was, when we asked them, how were you able to do this? They said, it's just like PBL, right? They teach us each other all the time. They are very comfortable with technology. They know how to use PowerPoint and do narrated presentations, because they had been doing it for Zoom PBLs. So they ended up creating these, recording it, converting it to a video, and wherever they needed, the pulmonary fellows were there to scaffold them, to help them reach even higher. So when our students are challenged. They are able to create the highest quality content and teach people who are more highly trained than them. Moving to telemedicine, if you remember, we had huge number of tests being done. Over 45,000 tests were done during a 2-month period in the first wave. And the patients were very anxious, and they wanted to know what the results were. Now, you could send a message, leave a voicemail that your test is negative. Well, what does that mean? Back then, people didn't know what that really meant. So 44 students volunteered their time working with 12 attendings for 2 months, and they contacted the patients and told them about their lab results. They learned about how they need to be flexible, so the patients are not always available 8 to 5, so they worked long hours to get hold of the patients. They learned about how healthcare systems work. They learned how to communicate sensitive test results, but most importantly, they got back something. They were able to build back the social connections that they were missing when there was so much distancing going on. And I'll tell you, the 4C and other institutes told us they saw students as a valuable resource. They weren't someone to be kept away from the clinical area. Moving to research, the clinic very early on started a registry. We started collecting data on every patient who was getting tested for COVID. And that registry had to be built. So students participated in that. And on a side, we started this, but it became enterprise-wide. We started collecting ideas from the student and said, if you had to do research on COVID, what would you do? And we created a red cap survey where people submitted their ideas. And then this was spread out to the entire enterprise to match up people with similar interests. So 10 students helped create the registry and put in the data for the first 2,000 patients. Subsequently, they hired a lot of other research assistants to do this. And our students submitted 50 ideas for research. They ended up working on several teams on research and ended up publishing from March last year to now, we have 22 publications that included students on just COVID-related topics. And one of these actually had 2 students, Scott and Zihai, and that has already over 310 cited. It's been cited 310 times. So some of them are really high-impact publications. And finally, virtual visits. So again, this was a huge challenge. Physicians themselves weren't comfortable with virtual visits. They were struggling how to do this, Google Duo versus FaceTime versus Zoom, et cetera. And some of our students were completely sidelined because the faculty didn't feel they could help manage to have the students in the visit on top of learning all this new technology. So 2 of our students, Shreya and Alexia, actually saw that this was a huge problem, and they figured out a fantastic toolkit, and they published this online as a resource of how to use each technology in a virtual visit, and then created a workflow that you can see here of how to have students included in it. And this actually would not be a burden for the faculty, but actually make the whole process much more efficient. And they didn't stop there. They actually did truly Cclcm approach. They did a research on it, gathering patient perspectives. And what did they find? They found that the patients actually thought that the virtual visit helped the student learn more, that they were more interested. Mostly everyone was interested in having a student at a future virtual visit, that they were very comfortable with having a student in the visit, and they were either neutral or they felt that the students actually made the virtual visit better. This was very, very powerful, and this is now awaiting peer review, but is going to be presented at the ACP Ohio, which I'm sure Craig will be very happy to hear. So what's the message here? One, I think, when we asked the students, they gained a new respect for the profession, of how the medical profession behaved and responded to COVID, and now they were part of it. They appreciated that opportunity to show their value, but they did feel kind of sad that they were excluded from the clinical experiences. And they hope that if there is a future pandemic, which I'm sure there will be the way things are going, that we in medical education would think of creative ways to include students so that they are part of the clinical research, patient care, all other experiences. So a lot of lessons learned, and I want to thank all the amazing students who helped during the COVID experience. Turn it back to you, Bud.
Thanks, Neil. A whirlwind, an amazing amount of work done. Our last topic today is so relevant. I think if you can't not know what's going on around the world. And we are looking closely at climate change and health from many lenses. And I'm going to have Dr. Gordon and James Sullivan give us a brief update.
All right, so thank you, Dr. Isaacson, for the introduction, and we're both thrilled to be here to talk. So climate change, similar to COVID and many other things that are happening currently in the medical profession, our knowledge of it and its effect on health and intersection with health and healthcare delivery is rapidly evolving and changing. So on the left side of the slide, you can see, one of many different graphics that are being produced and put out to help try and, again, just disseminate, in a brief infographic, this incredibly complicated topic. And so the acronym HEAT WAVE can really teach you a lot about the intersection between climate change and a hotter world and a more unstable global climate, and what this is going to do on the delivery of healthcare as well as various chronic conditions. And so the AMA, the American Medical Association, has called for the inclusion of climate change and health in medical education at both the undergraduate, graduate, and continuing medical education level. And so we at Cclcm, over the last couple of years, have tried to take this on and integrate climate change into our curriculum. And so that process first began in the fall of 2019, where we formed a multidisciplinary committee, which included Cclcm students, deans, and other affiliated faculty, and members of the Cleveland Clinic Department of Sustainability. And then throughout the 2019 and 2020 academic year, in a process very similar, though we don't have a nice figure that Gus very wonderfully showed, but in a similar-esque process, we reviewed the curriculum and evidence for climate change and health and tried to set curricular goals, and then identified learning objectives for inclusion within the curricula that disseminated from that. And then from the spring of 2020 to present, those began to be integrated and rolled out. And so we've now integrated climate content into existing curricular activities in pre-clerkship and clerkship years. And so I will begin the pre-clerkship part of this, and then I'll turn it over to Dr. Alyssa Gordon, who will take it over from here. But in the pre-clerkship years, we looked at problem-based learning, or PBL, and we specifically first targeted sort of the high-yield initial projects, or initial cases that one can easily connect climate change to. And so we started with asthma, COPD, respiratory illnesses, and the effects of heat islands, and the environmental impact of healthcare. And at this point, I'll turn it over to Dr. Gordon, who will take over from here.
Thank you, James, and thank you, Bud, for inviting us to talk. I'm involved in this work as the medical director for sustainability for the Cleveland Clinic and a GI pathologist, but it's been very enlightening for me to interact with more clinical medicine. And as part of that, I had the opportunity to be involved with the art and practice of medicine. Dr. Kodish invited us to participate in the session this past year for the first years, where they were already planning to talk about environmental justice and lead poisoning based on Dr. Mona Hanna-Atish's excellent book. And so he invited us to sort of put the climate health action spin on that. And we talked about environmental justice, climate resilience, climate health action, and advocacy. Moving into the clerkship years, again, thank you to Dr. Yepes Rios, who invited us to participate in the social determinants of health section, lab didactics, where Dr. Mehta and I presented a very straightforward, I think, case of a multi-generational family living in Cleveland, and really delving into the connections between their climate health vulnerabilities and social determinants of health for the different members of this family, and what they face, ranging from heart conditions, pulmonary conditions, psychological vulnerabilities, age, and those sorts of things, because climate change affects the health effects of climate change impact all organs of the body and are relevant in all health settings. So finally, the last clerkship involvement we had this year was something that's closest to my heart as a laboratory professional, which is health system science, and helping to expand our understanding of the impacts of health systems and healthcare delivery on climate change. So as we take our oaths to do no harm, especially as the first year class is here and incoming, we recognize that the actual delivery of our care generates waste and produces greenhouse gas emissions that ultimately have a deleterious effect on the health of our patients through propagation of climate change. So one of the really interesting aspects for me through this process was our approach, which started with the assessment of our curricular goals and what learning objectives we wanted to get across. And it's an active process. Our approach is definitely a little bit different than what we heard from the LGBTQ action group. But essentially, we're on the same track of integration. And we're just trying to integrate the activities into, integrate the educational content into the existing coursework and experiences. So at the end of each of our sessions that we have described, we did a quick Google form that Dr. Mehta calls a 1-minute paper, and asked, what did you learn today? And you could see here just some of the responses from the different students, and these are both from the APM and the health system science and the lab didactics together. And so the expressions of learning are quite profound, I think. And I'll just leave this up here for you to read while I finish out the remarks. But essentially, they really encompass the idea that climate change affecting health is going to impact their practice as future physicians. And so we feel very strongly that this is important in presenting to the students at this time. So we appreciate everybody's collaboration on this, as it is an integrative process. You know, we always reaching out to get more areas where we can integrate and more ideas about how we can fulfill this mission. I just want to talk about looking ahead briefly. We do so far plan to continue all the prior year sessions that we just described, and we're continuing to reassess our initial evaluation of our goals and learning objectives to identify additional areas for integration. One of the other things that we didn't put on here, but since everybody was talking about it, is that James was the first author on a paper describing our integrative process for climate change and health in our medical curriculum, and I think it should be published very shortly. It's already been revised and accepted. So continuing in that vein of publishing our research, because that's important. Also, interestingly, and we're happy to have more collaborators on this as well for whoever's interested, but we just are in the early stages of partnering with Case Medical School and the health education programs throughout the Case system to build a climate health education collaborative. And we're really just in the early planning stages of what that's going to look like. But as you can imagine, there's many health professionals who will be experiencing these health effects of climate change in their patients, and we want to get the most out of our wonderful collaborative experience with CASE to be able to share the information widely and conduct more research as well and integrate even more curricular elements. So. Thank you.
All right. How about a round of applause for our presenters today? I think I want to go to med school again. This is much different than the med school I went to, but a lot of exciting stuff. We've gone a few minutes over. I appreciate everyone staying. Really exciting work, and look forward to hearing more about how these projects continue in the next academic year. So I want to thank all of you in person for attending, everyone virtually signed in for attending as well, and I hope you all have a beautiful evening. It's not raining. I see a little bit of blue sky out there, and it's not dark yet, so enjoy the rest of the evening, and thanks for coming.